What's up, everybody? It's ICanSnake.
What's up, everybody? This is Someone98 here.
What's going on, everyone? It's James the Con Man, and let's just say private eyes are watching you. They see your every move.
And we have a special guest joining us this week, so please introduce yourself.
Hello, name's Steve Z, or you know me as Z Funkman for DeviantArt, leader of the Petters United group. And all I can say is to be back here is one word: yay.
So let's jump right into the plot. In this episode, after the pets listen to a strange news report from the newspaper, their imaginations run wild when they suspect a Siamese cat named Scout Carrie as a spy from the largest ever pet shop, targeting Mrs. Twombly to take her out of business. Meanwhile, at school, Blythe takes a big risk and recruits the Biscuit Twins for the mathlete team for a competition after listening to their unusual calculation skills.
My first positive would have to be the references. Well, reference being James Bond. As me, who kind of grew up with watching a little bit of James Bond, not the whole series, but I saw a few movies, it was very easy to catch on to what they were trying to reference here. It was pretty well executed.
See, a lot of the references they did, for people who aren't in the know, like a lot of musical cues sounded the same. They did a little reference to the intro to James Bond, like the little dot, but this time it's a paw print. And the whole, you see James Bond in your sights kind of thing.
Yeah. Another reference I found was Spies in the Night, or at least I believe it's Spies in the Night. And if there's one thing in this episode that I like, it's that reference. Because of Mantle Ponies and Michelle Creeber's cover of Spies in the Night, I kind of recognize that tune at the beginning of that reference. And every time I hear this song, I think of them, and this is no exception.
A reference I found is probably with Zoe's hairdo. Kind of reminds me of Agent 99 from Get Smart. Any of you remember that show? But it's a great show from the 60s. Yeah. Eunmi, really, she's one of my favorite characters in the show, and this episode really was the episode that turned me around on my opinion on her. When the show debuted, when we introduced Blythe's three friends, to be honest, Eunmi was the one I found least interesting, the one that least really didn't do much for me. But this is the episode when she really got to really step up and really kind of cement her place really as Blythe's main human sidekick. And this is the beginning of my second favorite duo on the show besides Vinny and Sunil, of course. But yeah, the beginning of that duo, and they make a great team, great tandem. Kind of reminds me of maybe Laverne and Shirley, maybe, or Lucy and Ethel, or who else? Pinky and the Brain, maybe, or maybe not that.
The one thing I wanted to mention about Scout, most likely, I want to start off with her, is because of the fact that, for those of you who don't know, is that Digby was made as, he was based off the Cahill's pet dog, and Scout was supposed to be a reference to the Cahill's actual cat.
Yeah.
Which I found really interesting, that they're actually taking their own pets and putting them into the show. That's actually pretty creative. And because obviously with the references that they did already, and basically they let their imaginations run wild, make them think that that's some sort of spy and all this other stuff. It was just a really good episode without embellishing on too much,
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we can go into negatives.
Yeah, you mean my negatives again.
Again, your negatives.
I can admit it.
I know. So, one of the major problems I have with this episode is basically just Scout Carrie in general. You have a guest pet, and you just let it sit there for the whole episode doing practically nothing, while all of the other pets get too paranoid, and then the guest pet leaves. Our pets don't even hide it. Zoe blatantly says that they'll let their imaginations running wild, but that's never a good idea. For once, they should have listened to Vinny, even though he's known as the dumb one, but this was one of the rare times he was acting really smart. And it goes both ways, too. Why did Scout never talk until the last few minutes of the episode? She could have explained to the pets that all she wanted was the newspaper from Twombly all along from the start, and this problem could have been avoided completely.
I was joking earlier about this being a nitpick, but just actually a brief point. Vinny is kind of seen as I wouldn't say dumb. Dumb's a little bit too strong of a word.
Well, yeah.
I'd say more, not really the brightest bulb in the shed, kind of a few short of a happy meal. He has what we call street smarts, and I guess he was using the street smart here. But you're right, Scout should have introduced herself more conventionally. That way, this whole problem could have been avoided. But at the same time, if that happened, we'd have basically half of an episode
Well, yeah, that's the problem. This episode wouldn't exist, and that's what it should have been. It shouldn't exist.
Which I wouldn't have minded though. More of the Blight plot, which is the plot I like better in this episode anyway. That's just me.
Mhm.
All the Shannon characters, any plot that centers on a Shannon character for me most of the time are like the ones I really enjoy. Because
My next negative is definitely a nitpick, so I have to confirm two things. This is a mathlete club, right? And this is for the subject of mathematics, right? I'm having trouble believing that because of an equation I saw in one of their practices, and that equation deals with physics and astronomy, not mathematics. Math deals with equations having shapes and graphs, not having to find the gravitational force between two masses at a distance apart using the gravitational constant. If you use the word mathematics in the very loosest form of the word, then I guess you could technically call it a math equation, but this isn't an equation I ever learned in my math class, but I learned this in my physics and astronomy classes. And I kind of have the need to point this out because I've learned a little bit of higher level math and physics and stuff, and I've learned this equation fits with the space and the planets, and that goes with physics and astronomy.
Alright, well, overall for me, this definitely wasn't one of my favorite episodes. It was good, but it wasn't great. Basically, everything I listed about the references with James Bond and the Hits and Blythe and Biscuits and everything were all really good, and I agree with Snake on this, is that Scout really doing nothing other than just staring at Mrs. Twombly the entire time and then leaving. It just didn't really feel like there was enough there. So I'm gonna have to give this episode an 8 out of 10.
Immediately after I started rewatching this episode, I remembered a lot of reasons I didn't like this. This is a common case of paranoia getting to everyone right away, and I don't particularly like that. Just like I said in our review for Hedgehog in the Plastic Bubble, it's never a good idea to start overreacting right away on a subject you know virtually nothing about. In an ideal situation, one should gather the required intel in order to not let their fears get the best of them, and the pets didn't follow that one bit. There was also one quote I noticed in this episode where Minka says to Russell, "Are you a spy?" And that's really similar to when Dashi asked Twilight, "Are you a spy?" in the pilot episode of MLP. The Biscuits also got a week worth of detention just for texting. That's really crazy to me, unless it's chronic texting and it's not the first time they've been caught texting. Because I can only speak for my own high school, but even texting multiple times during class just gets your cell phone confiscated by the teacher and you have to pick it up at the end of the day. A week of detention for that, it seems just crazy. I didn't find it funny how the pets know nothing about cats since they thought purring, a natural feline instinct, was some kind of spy gadget. I get it if they have never seen a cat before, but come on, really? I don't have too many good things to say about this episode, and I wasn't really impressed or excited after rewatching this episode twice this weekend. As a matter of fact, the last time I watched this episode was about a year ago or so, and I only got halfway through the episode before I reminded myself, yeah, this is the worst episode of the series. The only thing I noticed about the episode title, though, Books and Covers, is how it kind of reminds me of Cops and Robbers. Other than that, I'll give this episode a 4 out of 10. This was really, really uninteresting.
Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna go with Snake here. You know, this one was a pretty blah episode. I mean, aside from the James Bond references and the mathlete thing, this was not really the best. You know, it's not terrible by any means. I mean, it's not like they completely, said screw it and just made a crap episode. A lot of things just really rubbed me the wrong way. You know, there's just so many collective misfires. Like, even just the like what Snake said, but in their defense, they could be just chronic, repeat offenders in this case. So, maybe that's the reason why they got a week's detention as opposed to getting their phone taken away, because they're chronic offenders. So, anyway, back to my final thoughts here. Yeah, it was a pretty meh episode, and really the only reason I would watch it again is if I had to review it again. I'm gonna be a little bit more generous and give it a 4.7 out of 10. Yeah, this was not that great.
I feel like I'm like that guy in 12 Angry Men because my opinion this episode is so different from you guys. But it's mainly though for different reasons. You didn't really like the pet plot. For me, I love this episode because of the human plot, mainly because of Young Me, the Biscuit twins, and even Blight. I thought the way the Biscuits, came up with those math equations was very clever and showed potential in them that if they could just find a way not to be so reliant on each other, that's they could find a good way to study. And this is the episode that really made me a big fan of Young Me, who's like one of my favorite characters on the show. Before this episode of Blight's, 3 human friends, she was the one I found the least interesting, the one that least stood out. And this episode, she finally kind of got the spotlight, got to step out of the shadows, and really got to step up as Blight's, main sidekick. And from the comparisons before, but the best comparison to think of though, is like Blight is like Yogi and Young Me is like her boo-boo, pretty much. And not to mention, I thought Blight, Young Me, and Whitney, they all look, I like their outfits, look good, and poor Brittany though. Being stuck in the bathroom, being deserted, polyester. I can relate because I also kind of disagree with polyester. But when I first saw this episode, my original score was a 10 out of 10, but after talking to you guys and watching the episode again, and I think I'm going to downgrade it to a 9 out of 10. Still a solid episode for me, man, because I just look at the good instead of the bad, mainly because it's the beginning of my second favorite duo on the show as a team.
Yeah.
And we're delving into season 2, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's see what the randomizer gives us.
Come on, big bucks.
If I remember correctly,
no whammies, stop!
So next week's episode is Grounded.
Yes.
I guessed it.
Man. You gotta have fun with that one.
I know.
That episode is so good.
I am going to enjoy this.
My favorite Biscuit episode of the second season.
It's one of my top 5.
I love this episode.
Alright, guys, and so we will see you guys next week. So this is Sail Nation 98.
ICanSnake.
James the Con Man.
And our guest.
The one and only Z-Funk Man, Steve Z.
And we will see you guys next week. Out here.
Bye.
See you later.
Meanwhile, at Downtown City High School Detention Hall.
Bacon, I still think you were being very unreasonable.
Well, tough tittles. I don't care.
I told you not to shred the teacher's grading sheet because of an unfair math score, but no, you had to do it anyway and drag me down with you. And now we're going to miss the review.
Look, neighbor, no one, I repeat, no one gives me a B, okay? I'm like awesome A student up in his house. And look, the teacher isn't even here, man. I think we should just do the review right now. We've got a lot of time. He left, so let's just knock it out right now.
Well, I guess. Well, might as well just get it done now, get out of the way. So whip out that phone of yours and start the recording.
Alrighty then. Let me whip it out, and let me get this set up for you. Okay, in 3, 2, and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Downless Bacon, being funky fresh as always.
Greetings, everyone. This is CC Trainor-Ling.
Due to an unfortunate circumstance, we're in high school detention, even though one of us goes to college and the other doesn't even go to college at all.
Because, raisins.
Well, since we're here and we've got time to kill, let's get started on a little episode called Books and Covers.
I think my first positive would have to be the obvious one, Scout Carrie. There's just something about her that just makes you want to know what she's doing.
Yeah, she's a cat of mystery.
Yeah, I think that's what really makes her one of the more unique pets in this series. She doesn't have to say a lot of words just to define who she is. Just her actions are speaking a lot louder than her lack of words.
True that.
Just that look she always has in the episodes, like, you don't know what she's thinking. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, same here. Actually, Scout is my favorite guest pet from the entire series.
Really?
I mean, I had wallpapers of Scout on my phone. I thought she was the most adorable thing ever. And really, just letting your actions speak for you is really, really awesome. Because if you can perfect that silent character, or the majority of the time silent, then yeah, it works. And really, she was perfect for this plot.
Yeah, I would say so. And at least she got to finally speak at the end.
Yeah. She was upset, though.
Upset, but she got to shred the paper and leave us hanging in suspense. I wonder if she'll return? Who knows?
I hope so.
The next positive that I believe that we can all agree on are the fantasies and the references that go into said fantasies.
Oh, of course. Can't disagree with you there. The fantasies were awesome in this one. I'm not a huge fan of spy movies, but I really like the references they had here. You know, going off from like 007 to Get Smart and, you know, maybe a little bit of Kill Bill, I think, right?
Yeah, that would probably be the most iconic reference that they were making in this episode. I'm not sure if a lot of people actually remember Get Smart. I'm sure they all remember James Bond, but just the Kill Bill bride yellow jumpsuit was just... How could no one have picked up on that? I picked up on that the first time I saw the episode. It's like, yep, Zoe, I'm liking you more and more and more. Just be fabulous while doing it, because she can.
Forever fabulous. She's a diva, strikes a pose, and another, and then she wonders where you went.
Sometimes fabulousness can be your downfall.
Like, yeah, I really can't disagree with you there. Can't really add anything to that, so my next positive is Mrs. Twombly, because, well, seeing how the pets assumed that Scout was going to go after Mrs. Twombly, it's actually pretty interesting to see what Twombly does basically in her day when life is at school and the pets are just there. Kind of, you know, keeping up shop and playing Sudoku.
And reading fictional news reports.
Have you ever read the Dilly? It's immersive. Like, you want to start and finish. It's like, it hooks you.
It'll just hook me in.
Yeah, it'll just hook me in until I realize that none of the stories are true. Then I feel like an idiot.
They're not real?
No, they're not real.
They lied to me.
Dude, how do you think I feel? I've been reading this thing for like 5 years. You know, this is where I got my news from, but then apparently it's not real and I feel like a dope.
Sad but true.
The only other thing that I would like to mention is this one shot of Mrs. Twombly. In about 16 minutes and 48 seconds, she is there looking for something in the drawer, and when she retrieves it, she walks off. And this is the scene where Scout is about to jump at Mrs. Twombly, and the pets kind of prevent that from happening. I like how Mrs. Twombly looks directly at the camera. Kind of makes me wonder, does she know we're watching her? Does she know about the things happening in the background? Do you think Mrs. Twombly knows?
That's up to us to decide. One of my positives would probably have to be one of the more, I guess you could say, underrated positives. Well, positives in this sense. It would be the pets trying to stop Scout in the actual pet shop with their little, I guess you could say, polluted methods.
It was comedic joy. I loved this so much. It was a bunch of fun. All the pets had their shining moments, actually, in this one. With Russell having the plans, Minka having the swinger is down kind of moment where she's all busy and confused. We already talked about Zoe a little bit. And then, of course, we got to talk about Sunil being Agent Magic and doing all those, you know, martial arts-like moves with that, you know, having that karate gi of his. It kind of reminded me of this song. I don't know, this just kept playing in my head when I saw this scene.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach ya. Sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher. Now kick!
But it takes only one tail to take him down.
Unfortunately.
He can't do anything.
And of course, we gotta talk about Agent Laugh. Ooh, of course, Pepper. Had her great little moments with Scout, the most adorable I've seen in this entire series. When she actually had two. The first moment was with her and Scout kind of doing a stare off, and then Scout jumps one direction, she jumps, and then they keep jumping back and forth like da 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 da. And then just Scout just jukes her or something, and she just fails. And then we had the other moment where she's trying to spray her with her spray, and she corners her, and Scout is freaking out, and then she's about to spray her. Say goodnight. She runs out, and then Scout just jumps on her head, jumps off screen. And I love it when Pepper just kind of is there, and then she just kind of looks at the camera in defeat.
Yep, and fail.
And then Vinny had his cool moments also, being the smart guy here, I guess, if you want to say it like that.
Yeah, I would say those were some, I guess, mini moments, but I think the one pet that didn't really get much of a chance to shine in really stopping Scout would be Penny.
But Penny-Ling did have that awesome moment where she thought that her purring was like, what was it, a grappling hook with a subatomic pulsator ray? I don't know, she went off for a while. It was like the coolest sounding thing I've heard. Able to support the weight of an average pet.
But then again, it could have been a missile launcher. Well, my last positive would definitely have to be the Biscuits' unique intelligence. People can say what they want about those Biscuits, but when it comes to math, there's no stopping them.
I mean, I was really impressed with the Biscuit twins solving those equations, math or science, whatever you want to call it. But, I don't know, their little twin code is something... It's something different. I don't think I've seen this in another show. I don't know, have you?
I haven't seen anything yet, but... Hey, it just goes to show that the Biscuits are not as dim-witted as everyone thought.
Yeah, I guess they don't want to be geniuses, because someone might notice.
Well, maybe that only goes as far as Brittany has to have the intelligence.
Yeah, I think she's a lot smarter, but if they replace the X's and Y's and put clothes or in their place, then yeah, I think she can figure out all the equations and be like the smartest person in the world, probably.
She has to make a hole, and legend has it she's still itchy to this very day. Yeah, that's a scene that no one ever really brought up in the original review. Just that weird little ending. Didn't make sense, and I don't care.
I loved it. It was random, and it was hilarious. She was still itchy. I guess, don't know if anyone remembers that she's still there.
Legend has it she's still there.
Legend has it that she's still there to this day. Itchy. Because of the dreaded polyester. Evil laugh. So neighbor, you're telling me that I guess we can't judge a book by its cover? Like the title of the episode? Like the moral? You know, like with the Biscuit twins and the math and Scout with being a spy? No, don't judge a book by its cover? Title of the episode? The thing of the lesson that I guess swooped over everyone's head? No, CC? Oh, fine, I'll just go to my next positive. Okay, my other positive would have to be Blythe. Because Blythe in this episode, she was really awesome. I mean, she kind of jumped to conclusion a little bit with the Biscuits, but seeing that we learn that she is interested in more things, not just art and fashion, and that we learn that she's really good at math. Seeing how she wants to participate in the math leagues. Which, I was really good at math, but I never wanted to participate in anything else like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, adding more to this character, it really helps. And I think this was a good episode to show that, you know, Blythe is good at other things also. While this might not be referenced again in later episodes, it's good to actually know this. You know what I mean?
Definitely. And I really think this episode really stepped up on Blythe's character, seeing how she was really willing to risk, I guess, 2 weeks of detention just to prove that the Biscuits were, in fact, math geniuses.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know a lot of anybody, teens, adults, anybody who'd actually be willing to take that big of a risk, but I guess in this little fantasy, only Blythe has that capability. Well, I suppose that takes care of all the positives.
Neighbor, do you have any negatives? No? Neither do I. Let's get started with our final thought. And now it's time for my final thoughts, and unfortunately, as much as I love this big bowl of positivity, there was a bit of negativity earlier, and it really can be counter-argued, and I'm going to be here to provide the answers for you today. Now, something that was stated in the review was that, why didn't Scout just introduce herself? Or why didn't Scout just say anything? Well, that's not Scout's character now, is it? Really, she was more in tune to shredding paper. So that's what she was doing. She was more into shredding paper and getting Mrs. Twombly's newspaper. Of course, we learned that at the end. Number 2, why didn't the pets just listen to Vinny in the beginning? Why didn't they just ask Scout what she was doing? Well, then we wouldn't have a plot to this episode. And we wouldn't have this lesson that was being taught. Because this lesson is the same for both sides. Heck, it's the title of the episode, Books and Covers, or Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. Number 3, you know, they've never heard a cat purr. Yeah, it's possible, because think about this. In the episodes with Meow Meow or Sugar Sprinkles, did they purr? No, they did not. And a cat purrs when it's doing something that it really, really, really loves. And Scout just really, really loves shredding paper. So that's why she was purring as much as she was. Number 4. Yeah, Zoe did state that they were going to let their imaginations run wild. And yeah, that's basically a joke. It's like a fourth wall break. Because, yeah, they could have this resolved like right there, just asking Scout what she's doing. But like I stated earlier, we wouldn't have an episode. And we wouldn't have the really cute moments and the really funny moments that the pets had. Number 5. The math and or science equations. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. It really doesn't matter what the equations are exactly. Yeah, they are mathletes, so it's going to look like math. And math and science are really close connected to each other. The whole point of these questions is not to actually... It could have been random numbers. It could have looked really difficult and had no answer, and it doesn't matter. The whole point of these questions were to be very, very difficult. They were supposed to be very difficult to the point where when Blythe was there, she noticed that the Biscuit Twins solved them really fast, which got her attention, and had to get Sherman, or the other kid there, to actually get a brain sprain due to the difficulty of these questions. So that is the point of these questions. Really, I don't even care if they're science or math or whatever. As long as they don't have it like reading questions, then yeah, that's the only thing. But an equation is an equation. Number 6, the moral. I already said this before. This whole thing was about not judging a book by its cover or jumping to conclusions, which both did, Blythe and the pets. And they both even stated it at the end. Thought someone was one thing, but it turned out they weren't. So really, it had a lesson to teach. And just like the previous episodes, they have lessons to teach, and that is why they have this little conflict happen. The pets are not geniuses, so I actually don't really penalize them for making this kind of error. Or Blythe also. And again, she really likes math and the math. So I guess with all those negatives tackled, and if there's any more that I missed, I'll probably put it in the comments section. But overall for me, this episode is a really, really good episode. It's one of my favorites of season 1 and of the entire series. It's probably in my top 20 for sure. Scout is the most adorable thing I've ever seen. And really, the lesson was taught fairly well. All the characters were in tip-top form because they had the best comedic chemistry. And really, this episode is a bunch of fun to watch. So with that in mind, I'm going to give this episode a 9.9 out of 10. It's a really awesome episode. No one is going to change my final thoughts on this. And really, without this episode, I would never see Scout. I would never know that Mrs. Twombly played Sudoku. I'd never know that the Biscuits were math geniuses, in a way. And really, it's a lot of cool things in this episode that, if not there, it's a wasted opportunity. Really, sometimes with shows, you just gotta have fun with it. Really, being negative all the time doesn't really benefit anyone. I guess it's my job to show you the light of every episode. So, on to you, Cece.
And now for my final thoughts. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I would say this episode added things up to its greatest potential. It's not a top 10 episode of season 1 in my honest opinion, but it's almost there. Scout may not have had a lot of lines, yet it's not really that big of a deal. I think she's one of the more mysterious guest pets whose actions clearly spoke louder than words. It's not very often we see a character like Scout, so I don't subtract any points from her. As far as being a Siamese cat goes, she nailed it. Well, actually she shredded it, but alrighty then. When it came to the A-plot, the pets took their fantasies on stopping Scout from attacking Mrs. Twombly to the third power. They're actually some of my favorite sequences in the entire series. The outfits and direction of these fantasies really made me appreciate the references they made to James Bond, Get Smart, and the most obvious one of the bunch, Kill Bill. It was almost like the entire A-plot took place within a fantasy, but just to reinforce that reality part, thank you Zoe for breaking the fourth wall twice, the pets were actually pretty calculating at stopping Scout in the pet shop setting. Well, since I mentioned the word calculating, I think this would be a good time to bring up the Biscuits. This episode made me rethink about their character. For the first 10 episodes of the series, I only saw them as rude and unintelligent, but seeing how they were able to solve these complicated math problems in this very odd method, they're pretty smart when it comes to something like math. Well, at least Brittany seems to be. Her intelligence comes up again in the future episode Feud for Thought. Who would have thought they'd multiply a plotline involving a biscuit intelligence for a second time? So if you take all these positives and divide them by 22 minutes, you get a very good episode. The moral of this story, don't believe everything you see, or in this case, don't believe everything you read. I give this episode an 8.7 out of 10. So, ciao for now.
Well, I guess that killed some time, but man, we're still here in detention. I don't know. What do you think? We should just bail. This has been way too long for us to be here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be a good time to bail. I actually gotta get this book back to the library. It's gonna be overdue in just a couple of minutes if it's not back on time. Gotta love the provocative images of Swedish meatballs.
Oh man, I freaking love that book so much. But really, we can talk about books later, and it's very, very interesting cover. But right now, I have the window open. Fortunately, we're on the second floor, so I'm gonna take a leap of faith. I don't know if you want to. I'm sick of it being here, and I don't want to get caught by the teachers, because I think he's outside. So, you ready for this?
Okay.
Alright. 1, 2, 3! I'm in pain, but luckily for us, this bush broke our fall.
Yes. I'll get the feeling back. Hopefully.
Okay. Did not think that through. This was not the smartest idea. I'm gonna be honest. I am in so much pain right now. Oh man, I did not think this through, and there's one in my finger, like it's like when you get a splinter, but then you just notice it. I regret this. So everybody, this is Downloads Bacon.
And this is CC Trainor-Ling.
So Petshoppers, I'll be seeing you in the next episode, or possibly at the hospital. So, thanks. And thanks again.
Peace out, home oh my god. Bleeding? How can I be bleeding? I just hit a bush! Maybe the hospital can fix this.
Wow, that was really stupid of you guys. I mean, you didn't even think to know that detention was over like 20 minutes ago. I was just asleep the whole time. I completely forgot. I forget what I was doing, but I should have told you earlier. Then again, I don't even know what you guys are doing here in high school. You guys are adults. This is a stupid story. I mean, this makes no sense.
You hear that, CC? Detention was over. Ugh.